Hello, my name is Alexander Morari, and I'm the founder of ITKeyMedia. You've tuned into our podcast about Central and Eastern European startups that are in pre-Series A stage. And I'm very happy to introduce Darko Jovišić today from the Robotiq.ai, Robotiq.ai, shall I say. That's the founder of a Croatian company. Again, there's another geographical discovery that we planned for our podcast to have at least one startup from every Central Eastern European country. Zdravo, Darko. Hello.
Zdravo, zdravo. Hello, everyone.
As a quick introduction, Robotiq.ai, that's a company that develops a platform for business process automation through basically RPA, right? Robotic process automation.
Yeah. In a nutshell, it's a RPA platform.
RPA platform, yes, which has been developing pretty rapidly. You will agree, right? And then tell me, what is RPA for somebody who doesn't know this space very well? How would you describe this in a nutshell?
It's a very simple software to explain and actually to show. So the software robot, even the term implies that it's some kind of hardware. It's not. It's a piece of software that can replicate human interaction on the computer. So whatever you're doing now on the screen, clicking, entering data, so the robot can replicate that. So you can use this, I would call it, like, to simplify it, you can call it macro on steroids. So it's able to automate kind of the repetitive back office administrative type of work, which today, is still very much present, and there's a lot of manual human labor, especially in the services organizations, such as banks, insurances, telcos, and all these other services companies.
It's your fault, but I will dig deeper. So you said RPA is macro on steroids, and let's say I'm like a 7-year-old kid. Okay, so what do you mean by macro on steroids? And simplify it even more for somebody who is your potential client from the business side, not from the tech side or from like process-driven kind of department.
So you can think of it as a digital worker, as a digital companion. So it's your digital colleague who is doing all the boring stuff and all the repetitive stuff. So if you have some business process like copying data from one application to another, you can, let's say, implement this digital worker who will take care of that, and the humans can do much more creative stuff.
How different is RPA from the automation processes not called this way and that have been there around for quite a while now?
Yeah, so RPA has a spot because, especially in bigger companies, you have very heterogeneous IT environment. So if you take, for example, a bank, you will have hundreds of applications, like old IBM mainframe style, different types of applications. So sometimes it's very hard to actually integrate them by the book through code and so on. And that's where the robots are especially useful, because you can automate this process quite quickly without the need to change anything in your IT environment.
Okay. And so you, by implementation of RPA solutions, so to say, you are creating an extra dimension covering, right? All the...
we are basically adding another layer on top, and you are using whatever the humans would use in the process. So you're just adding on top of everything a piece of software that will do it as the same way as the humans would do it.
Mm-hmm. And then just to finish the warm up, who would you say are the ideal candidates for automation using RPA solutions? And let's go by the verticals, so by the business types. Okay, so you mentioned banks. Mm-hmm. Who else?
Yeah, so financial services are a sweet spot because the process have the volume, have the repetitive nature. Also utility companies, hospitality, manufacturing, but basically any company has, some repetitive stuff going on. And that's especially true if the company is mostly dealing with services, not the products. And in terms of the size, most of the current implementations are in, let's say, enterprise segment. But I think as the time goes by, it will come down to the SME segment as well.
You know what? This morning I received an email from a solution that I was trying to implement in our company. Pretty interesting. I would say also like automation related. And so the global business development director took the time and effort, or maybe just involved a bot or something, and wrote to me a personal email saying, "Look, judging by your data, we know that your company is less than 10 people, and this is not like cost effective for you. We work with enterprises starting with 5,000 seats or licenses globally. So I'm sorry, but we will need to find something else." So would you say your own, and now we will switch to your own solution. Would you say your own solution has some entry barrier as far as number of users, licenses, seats, whatever you measure?
Oh, it has to come down to business case, you know. So you can have a, I don't know, 10 people company or 15 people company, but if you are, let's say, effectively saving 1 or 2 FTEs, you can pay off the technology itself and the implementation. So it's actually not a matter of kind of the absolute price of the product. It's more, can you find good candidates and a good business case to actually validate the investment. But in most cases, the customers have something like 6 to 12 months ROI period for RPA implementation.
Okay, that's specific enough. Darko, let's then switch to back to the scenario and go to round one, the solution, the product. If you can, let's try and jump into the program and you will share the screen.
So what you see on the screen here is an application that is used to control the robots, to monitor the robots, what they're doing, for assigning work. We call it headquarters or HQ. So it's kind of, let's say, the server component of the entire solution. And then the second one is you have the actual robot. Our solution is based on unattended robots. So I will run the demo, but in production, this robot would not be running on employees' computers. It would be running in a virtual machine in data center. So the robot is completely autonomously working, and this HQ component is controlling what is doing it and when is performing the process. So what you see on the screen here is a model of one very simple process. And this is how we specify to the robot what needs to be done. So as you can see, it's not some kind of programming. It's more like business process modeling or some kind of workflow automation tool, somewhat similar to that. So for example, in this step here, the robot will open an application which is located somewhere on the disk. And after that, it will read some data from an Excel file and from sheet 1, and it will read all rows. And then it will repeat all the steps which are beneath it for every row from that Excel file. So what we are reading here is we are reading some data from the Excel file and then just entering this data in some kind of application. So one of the specifics of our solution is that we rely on computer vision. So this step, it's a click step. The robot needs to click on a radio button in the application. And we are finding this element through use of image processing algorithms. So when the robot comes to this step, it will take this picture, it will take the screenshot of the application, and it will locate where is it located on the screen. So this gives us simplicity because it's very easy to understand what will happen here. It's easy to replace this picture, and on the other side we have the robustness because the application can change a bit. It can change location, we can change the screen resolution, and so on. So these are a couple of very important things. So let me just close this off. So how do you develop is you can add steps manually. So you have something like 70 different types of steps, working with the application, working with Excel, working with databases, and so on. So you can do that way, but you can also use the built-in recorder. So actually I can record stuff and increase the speed of development. So typically when we implement processes, it's something like weeks. So in a company, it would take, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks to automate a complex process.
Okay.
So let me run it for you to actually see what's going on. So when I click play, it will start on my laptop. It will read the Excel in the background. It will populate the data. As you can see, it's quite fast. Now it's waiting for the contract to be processed, and then it's done. Now this is a very simple process, but typically we are, working with four or five different applications in a process. So I'll just, for the end, I will just do one more thing. So this was the original application that was used in the process. So I've made a small adjustment. As you can see, the button that was here is moved, it's bigger, it's different. The euro is also located somewhere else. And we are just gonna swap out these applications. And without changing the process, I'm going to run the demo again. So in most cases, using different products, it would fail. But in our case, since we are using computer vision, it's still able to find these controls, even if they're on different space and look differently. So when you're done, actually what was running on my laptop, when you publish it into production, it's running completely autonomously. And the last bit is that we have a chatbot over here. And this chatbot enables us, so it's not like a generic type of chatbot that you would see on a web page. It's integrated into the platform. And it enables a communication of employees and robots. So very often you need to have approval from the employee, or they need to direct the process or correct the data. So using this chatbot and some steps, we can implement in the process, if the contract is larger than 100,000 euros, then you need to get approval from the human to actually process the contract. So this is kind of the mediator for the communication between robots and humans.
Yeah.
So that was a very, very quick lap through the product.
Yes, Darko, thanks. It really looks very easy to implement, to operate, and to run. And I understand that, especially in like traditional types of companies like banks, for instance, that are very usually the whole infrastructure is kind of outdated, you could say, right? And so, like those COBOL mainframes, dinosaurs, let's say, your additional value that I think this kind of process adds to the clients is that you give, one could say, a second life to those old, outdated mainframes, and without having to implement something completely new, and without running the risk of breaking things in a relatively stable world in the bank infrastructure. You're just giving this a second life, basically, and create a new, more universal, agile, should I say, or flexible language, right, to the users. Interesting.
Yeah, you're definitely right. So some of these applications don't have the technical capabilities to integrate them with other applications. And in most cases, you're using a couple of these applications, so it makes almost impossible or not worthwhile to do it on the code-based level. So the business users are stuck. So they give the request to IT, but IT is, overburdened. They constantly have to implement new things. They are worried that they might break something. And, there's obviously a lack of programming workforce. So they end up, doing the work manually, and their business issues are not solved. So with this technology, they can relatively quickly automate stuff, and they can adjust over time. If the process changes, they can, so that's the upside. The downside is that you are effectively increasing technical debt. So yes, you are giving second life to these old applications, but at the same time, the technical debt is put under the carpet. So everything is like now automated, but in fact, it's still old applications. So I think the customers need to be aware. They have to follow the trends and try to modernize their environment.
Yeah. Okay. Let's maybe switch to the business side of your own company right now. So I understand, as we just exchange in the meantime, that you have some traction already, and as far as annual revenue, it's more or less 350-ish euro. I understand, and have 15 or so paying customers,
Yeah.
which is great. And let's start with the first customer, first paying customer. Could you take me through the process of basically, landing first contract and going beyond pilots to a client that is paying for the service? How difficult was the process, and what takeaways you could share with
Yeah.
other founders that are building some enterprise kind of
Yeah,
solutions?
first couple of customers were actually non-paying customers, and how it goes, you basically gave away software just to have an opportunity to test the application and then to have opportunity to do something which is relevant. But yeah, after that, we had this confirmation that it's working in production on some customers, and we managed to secure a couple of contracts. So one was with the Serbian partner, which implemented the system actually for American insurer. So they've spent a lot of time actually evaluating everything that was on the market, and they liked the flexibility and how fast we were in actually developing the system. So they also like the opportunity that they can influence actually the roadmap and the responsiveness of our support and people, which is, I would say also very important, because now you have these big RPA companies, but sometimes it's very hard to get in touch with them and to actually solve your problems.
Okay.
So yeah,
so you want to say the current kind of leaders in RPA market are biting their own tail by being too big right now and focusing on like biggest clients of their own. Okay, and that's where your competitive edge could be. Okay.
Yeah, they're going so aggressively that they kind of, maybe I would say, lose touch with the customer base and the partner base. And that's definitely what we see on the market, because very often we come in a situation where the customer had some licenses of some solution and they were trying to do something on their own for a year or two, but it's going nowhere, and then we step in and then we do it properly. And we see it all the time. So I would say yes, so they are a victim of their success at the same time.
Okay, interesting. And what about the pricing? You have 15 clients or so. Take me like through your price bands or price ranges. What are the key elements? Yeah, go on, please.
Yeah, we have different licensing models. So the one that is the most standard is the annual subscription, and it's what everybody else has on the market. And I would say the minimal, we are quite transparent with the pricing. So the minimal deployment is HQ plus 2 robots, and the robot can do multiple processes, not at the same time, but it can do, let's say, different jobs. And you have capacity of 24 hours where you can, use this robot to fill it up. So the HQ plus 2 robots is something like 10,500 euros annual subscription. Besides that, we have the perpetual version licensing model, and that's like the traditional IT CapEx based budgeting, which is still relevant for some companies because they want to buy an asset, they want to have it on their books, and they want to invest from CapEx budget. And lastly, we also introduced a new model. We haven't marketed that much, but it's actually pay-per-use. So you're not licensing components, you're buying essentially minutes of robot work. And this minute of robot work, the price is correlated to the cost of work. So the price of minute in Croatia is not the same as the price in Norway. So this gives you ability to actually, grow with the solution. And then, when you can see, when you determine that it's more viable, that you will use annual subscription, you can switch to that and save. So we have different licensing models.
Yeah. So in your case, pay-per-use, it's like your go-to market kind of strategy, right? So come try,
I think that will be very important in the future when we start going more into the SME space, because smaller companies cannot afford, upfront investment of 10 or 15K into the technology. So this, as you said, gives them the opportunity to try, and if it works, they can later switch to the other model.
And also, I think this will be a key for your expansion without actually interacting with clients directly, right? So this could be automated as well. So they come, they test drive, and if they like, they buy, and you don't need to send your sales reps or salespeople to meet a small company in Poland or Slovakia or Latvia, right?
Yeah, especially if you can also provide them with the standardized processes. So, as a company, you have to send a lot of things to the government, tax authority. There are a lot of standardized stuff in company operations. So if you can give them a finished robot, that sends, some tax information or something, that's, you're also taking the implementation price as well. So definitely, going forward, that will be a really important model. But our scaling model is actually through partners. So yes, we are selling directly, but that's not the desired state. So the desired state, we already have around 10 partners that are actively selling and implementing the technology. So the idea is that they buy licenses from us and they implement it for the end customer.
A license for what? For a market? Like for one country or for city? What's your approach?
So they find a bank, a telco, whatever, who likes the solution. So they buy the license, the platform license from us. They sell it to the customer, and then they implement the processes on top of that.
Oh, I see. So integrators, local integrators get access to. Okay.
It's not only integrators. Actually, most of our partners are kind of business consulting companies, process engineering, these kinds of management consulting and so on.
Yeah, but somewhere down the pyramid of like all the names and so on, there are some integrators involved as well. But basically, it's on a more strategic level as well. Okay, interesting. Darko, let's make a quick kind of experiment. Okay, let's say I'm your client and I know already as much as I know now about the product, and I will go through a couple of questions with you and try to answer them like short, sweet, to the point. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Darko. I'm your potential client. Are you able to support the full automation lifecycle from discovery of necessary processes and so on to actually measurement of success?
Yes, we can. So we have also the analysis part, the implementation, and then we also have some metrics and dashboards which can actually show you how much you saved.
Okay, we've tried many other solutions. How quick are your solutions? I mean, how fast the process is, basically, for a very complicated process, let's say.
It's typically what we see on the market. It's somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks. 6 weeks being, like more complicated processes. And that includes everything from business analysis to production.
That's implementation, I understand. And then how quick are the processes themselves through your
It depends on mostly on how fast are the underlying applications. So if the human needs to wait 15 minutes for some report to be generated, then the robot will also cannot be faster than that. So in most cases, it depends on the applications.
Okay. How much resources will I have to involve in the deployment stage? I mean, how many people you will need from my company?
There are two. You need the process owners or the process executioners. You will need them in 2 phases. One is during the analysis, and the second one is during the testing. So these are, let's say, two areas where we need engagement. And also we need some support from IT, albeit we don't need very much of their engagement, but we need someone who will create the virtual machine, install the application, open users, and so on.
Okay, thanks. Next, are you implementing in how heavily machine learning and predictive analytics?
Yes, we are implementing machine learning, and that happens in the vision center, which is actually locating these elements in the application. And that makes it easier to develop, and it's more robust.
Okay, clear. Darko, what about the interconnectivity? How seamless is it? And have you tried on many like different settings or setups of different?
Yeah, you don't have to be limited. So you can use any type of application to automate. And also you can integrate our solution with your applications through API, meaning you can, in your application, when a user clicks OK, you can call our platform and start the robot to do some work and to return the results. So you can heavily integrate it into your environment as well.
Are you allowing us to integrate third-party analytics and, let's say, dashboard systems as well?
Yeah, you can retrieve the job statistics, using API, so you can analyze it in your own system.
Yes, okay. And basically, I have a question, but you, I think, answered this already. Are you offering flexible licensing model and low cost of entry, which you do, right?
Yeah. We that's one of the key things. So we provide flexibility in terms of licensing, but also in terms of deployment. So you have option to deploy everything on-prem. It can be hybrid, and it can also be like completely outsourced cloud-based. So we can host everything for you as well.
Thank you, Darko. I'm buying. I will send you the contract by email. Thank you.
I will send you an invoice.
Darko, thanks. Let's move on. Round two, competitors. Just as you said, the market, the space is growing, and almost $2 billion or so are like predicted by the consulting companies. And yeah, this space is bound to grow in dollar value, kind of, but also in number of competitors. You are not the first, you're not the second into the space, and there are giants, as you know. Some of them also come from Central Eastern Europe, that are decacorns already, and a whole list of companies already present. What's your differentiator, you would say, and how can you join the race successfully?
First of all, I think the market is still young. There's so much space. We've been talking to clients all over Central East Europe, and I would say roughly 60 to 70% actually never heard about this technology, which is very interesting. So I think there's a lot of space yet. In terms of the differentiators, I would say our key buzzword or key term is simplicity. So as you've seen in the demo, it's aimed to provide this simplicity, and that simplicity is related to development, but also in maintenance. I didn't show these aspects, but RPA is quite maintenance heavy. So if something changes in the application, if there's some Windows update happening, so the consequence is that somebody always needs to monitor and fix processes and this stuff. So we have a bunch of features that allows it to have more simple maintenance and troubleshooting. Like, for example, we can have video recordings of every job that the robot did. So you can actually see what the robot did, and you can actually see what happened, what error happened during the process. So a bunch of features like that. So in one word, it's simplicity, and this simplicity gives us speed in development and deployment.
Would you say RPA is in this trend of no code, low code kind of approach?
Yeah. And you can see definitely some of the competitors actually going more deeply into this low code and actually diverging from RPA to kind of more low code type of stuff. So I think in the future we might see some of these, blending. So it will be very hard to distinct actually what is a robot, what is a low code. So yeah, that's happening on the market as well. You can see that RPA vendors are integrating RPA with many different systems like BPMs, low code solutions, process discovery tools, machine learning solutions. So it's kind of being integrated into many different solutions. They call it hyper automation. So that's the next level buzzword that you will hear about.
Or RPA 2.0, right?
Yeah. The term is hyper automation. I don't like it, but that's the marketing.
Yeah, hyper, mega, super duper. Darko, thanks. Let's move on. Round three, a quick Q&A. What are your key personal productivity hacks?
Key productivity hacks.
Not the tools, but the way you do things.
Well, it's in my case, it's a lot of multitasking, but I like to keep maybe one or two things that I really want to accomplish through the day. of course, there are a lot of interruptions and, emails and different things going on. But for a certain period, I like to get what I call in the zone. So I just tune out and I decide, these are the 2 key points that I want to do today. If you don't do that, then you end up, not managing work, but it's actually managing you. So you're just, like floating on the river, and the river is taking you wherever it wants. So
yeah, I understand your approach. So you want to prioritize and get into the zone, so to say. But now, technically, what signals do you send out to the people around you? Do you put a card like
is actually, yeah, they actually can see it on my face. So if they start talking to me and I'm just like looking at them and they can see that actually I'm looking through them, then they realize, oh, okay, you're in the zone. So I'll come back later.
Oh, that's a phrase that you are using in the team, in the zone, right?
Yeah, they started
this.
actually seeing this behavior on me. And so they come in, okay, I see that you're now deep into something, so I will come back later.
Twilight zone. Okay. and a little bit like a little bit of a brainstorm. How would you suggest yourself or other people basically to show that you are in the zone? I mean, physically, to people in the physical surroundings. Would you say there's like a card, or you put your headphones in your ears?
Yeah. Maybe I should do something like that. Some card or some sign on the door or something. Don't disturb now or something like that. Yeah, because I admit sometimes I get into a stupid situation because somebody's asking you something and then you're just not perceiving them at all.
And look, there's a cost of switching to this question. And if you are like a diplomatic or a good team worker or team leader and so on, you have to show some respect or pretend you
are
give
interested,
attention. Yeah. But then the cost of switching to this and then back to what you were focusing on probably is very expensive to the company, especially when people like at high level of responsibility and decision making process and power are involved.
You're completely right.
So again, as far as a recommendation, would you say a simple card would be enough, like, or just a card, a sticky note on your computer, basically, right? If it's a red one, you just stick a sticky note which is red, and you say no go, I'm in the twilight zone. Or yellow, if it's very urgent or whatever, right?
And I think it's a good suggestion.
Wow,
I think.
Wow. I mean, come on. I mean, really, it's very easy. I will test it tomorrow, by the way, with the team as well.
Okay,
and
so let me know about the result.
Do the same.
The only thing, if you keep the red all the time, then it's gonna, the effect is not gonna work. So you have to use it carefully. Not like all day 8 hours. It's red. You have to use it wisely, I would say.
Yeah, red line. Okay, interesting. Darko, next question. Look, knowing what you know today, what would you do differently?
In my company?
Yeah.
Where do I start? We first the fundraising. So we raised the seed series a couple of months ago, but actually we started way back, maybe almost 2 years ago, and we've done it in a completely wrong time. So we had already a larger number of employees. So we had something like 20,000 euros of burn each month. But at that point, we didn't have traction. We didn't have still sold licenses on the market. So we were asking for a lot of money with no proof that actually, somebody is willing to pay for that. So we spent a bunch of time, contacting VCs and spending time when actually it was not a good time to do that. So we had to pull the brake and to achieve this traction of 10 customers and then go back to VC, and then it was working quite fast. So that was number one. Number two, I would also be more careful about cash flow things, because when we actually launched the product just 2 months before the COVID struck, and for 3-4 months, nothing was happening. So we almost died, like really we are close to that, and there were some government subsidies, and we managed to pull through just, by an inch, and then the market started and we started selling licenses. But, if the situation was longer for a month or two, we would be dead. So I think cash flow is really something that you have to be careful about at the beginning. And also, I would say, be careful about equity and how you structure your cap table, and because later down the road you could have some issues related to that cap table. So I would be careful around that.
Without giving like specific details of the issues that you hint at right now, as far as managing cap table, what do you mean with that? Like be more assertive with investors, or be more frugal with employee equity?
I would be careful about early stage investors and how much you're giving to them and what's their level of engagement. So what you don't want to end up is with the, let's say, a passive investor who has larger portion of equity in your company, because that's going to be a dead weight for the VCs that are going to come in later. So it can be a cause of issues.
Yeah, it's just to be aware that it's not a casting for you as a startup. You are doing the casting as well, right? For the VC, basically. Interesting. Round 4, the company. Okay, so you mentioned already the company was founded, what, in 2018, more or less?
2018, August. So yeah, it's going to be 3 years.
And so as far as management board, it's yourself, Darko Jovišić, product owner, co-founder, and then you also have Marko Gudeli, Anna Vidovic, Ivan Belas, and
yeah, so me, Marko, and Ivan are co-founders, and then Anna Maria is also a member of our leadership team.
Yeah, and you have all the relevant backgrounds and
we spent a lot of years in actually corporate IT. I used to work for Microsoft. Marko used to work for Software AG, and we covered the different roles, everything from sales, marketing, down to the implementation, so consulting practices. So we had various types of skills. Also, I was a partner in a company where I was a practice leader. So when the company was sold to the system integrator, so I also had, let's say, not a big one, but I had an exit previous to this startup.
Yeah. How many people are you beyond the founding team?
So now we are 13 FTEs and plus 5-6 external contractors.
And what's the division of labor between purely like backend tech and sales marketing? Are you not growing on sales?
I would say it's 50-50. So half of the team is in development and half is in other functions.
We are recording this podcast in July, more or less, like half of July, let's say. By end of this year, 2021, what are your plans for the team growth?
I would say we would end something like maybe like 20 people. That's the plan. For other KPIs, our plan is to do something like 400K ARR, so annual recurring revenue. And from the top line perspective, so overall revenue, we are aiming something like 650K euros, which is more or less double growth what we had last year.
Yeah, of course. I mean, from low base, you can go by hundreds of percent. But anyways, with these dynamics, I understand, would it be correct to say that by end of 2022, you would target something like 1 million ARR?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. There's the goal. And especially when it comes to partners, because now we are having partners which are completely independent, meaning that they can sell and implement and deploy and do everything without any help from our side. So, and that's the best case scenario. So they just call in and say, I need HQ plus 5 robots, and you just give them the invoice and the license, and that's it. So that's the sweetest part. If we would have, 20 of these partners, then it would be really awesome.
Yeah. And can you share the Can you share the revenue share between you and partners, like
Yeah,
the
sure,
range?
sure.
This could be
So they
interesting as well.
get they get 25 to 35% margin, so discount on the license. So they get a cut of the licenses, plus they get all the implementation services for the customer. And typically it's larger budget. So when you take a bigger project in some enterprise company, licenses are like maybe 30, 40% of the project value, and the rest is, you know, the services, demand days. So there's a significant, you know, revenue opportunity for partners that are in this space.
Yeah, and I understand as far as partners revenue, it's more kind of one-off for them, and you're taking majority, if not all, of the recurrent, or is it not the case?
In licensing, they get 25 to 35%, but you know,
okay.
you have to understand how these projects typically work. So, so you come in with the customer, you automate first 5 processes, it works very well, you know, customer is happy, and then they come back after a couple of months and they say, I have 10 new processes that I want to automate. And then after half year, another. So it's constantly actually doing smaller projects in circles. So, so if you are service based, you know, like an integrator, you can actually make a lot of money in these types of projects.
Okay. So how great a mission to become rich, making other partners rich as well.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Darko, thanks. And let's move on to the final round, round 5, Formula F3, or funding for the future. So where we review the funding history and plans for the company, right? So by now I understand you just announced your seed round and your total investment is more or less 1.1 million euros. And this comes from J&T Ventures. And you have also what, a grant, right? From EU Eurostar program.
Yeah.
Now, so what about the runway that you plan to use this? Like how long?
It's the financing is based on 18 months. And the whole plan for these 18 months is actually to scale in the Central East Europe and some other markets, which are not, you know, the mature markets like US, UK. And that step of 18 months is actually preparation for the actually going to these, you know, UK, US, Germany, and all these richer markets. And why we are doing it in this way? Because we want to be ready for that step in terms of having, you know, a bigger reference list of customers, having a bigger partner network, and also through the EU Eurostars program, we are working on some really cool and advanced features, which would give us more competitive edge when we come to those more developed markets. So the next plan would be like late next year, actually start fundraising for the Series A and then actually go for these bigger markets.
Okay, and as far as Central Eastern European markets, which ones are the priority for you based in Croatia right now? Like with the closest or like the richest in Central Eastern Europe? What is your approach?
All of them. So we are already covering, let's say, the closer region, the Balkans region, but we also want to be much more present in Poland, in Slovakia, in Czech, even in Bulgaria and Romania. And some markets, you know, like, I don't know, Turkey, you know, it's I think it's quite a wealthy market, but I think it's underserved by the competition. So we want to target these. We have a partner, for example, in South Africa, and which is also proving to be a really good market. So we want to find these types of markets which have the need and the budgeting to actually to implement such technology.
And I think there's also some hidden potential in trying and get local branches of global companies to implement and then escalate this to more cluster kind of level, EMEA, global, and so on.
Yeah, we are working already with a couple of these like conglomerates, global conglomerates, where we are implementing, like BDO is an example. It's one of the biggest tax and audit companies. So we started in Austria. Now we are doing project in Croatia. We are going to do probably a project in Czech, Serbia, and then you have this opportunity to actually, as you said, then approach the global BDO and say, we have it working in 5 countries. Can we roll it out on a more global level?
Yeah, and then you have your own internal kind of insiders, inside champions in this global conglomerates. Interesting. Darko, thanks. And I have to ask this question as I usually do. Do you have your own personal exit plan for the company? And don't tell me this is too early and so on. Let's imagine you said this already. So I'm pushing. What's the exit plan for yourself?
Well, I would say it's a strategic partner. So I wouldn't say it's IPO. I think the most likely path for us is that, either a vertical company or a horizontal company buys us. So it could be something, either a bank or insurance buys us, or it could be some like technological company, let's say a BPM software provider or something like that, some company like that. They also can acquire our software to actually broaden their product portfolio. So I think that's the most likely case, I would say. So yeah, I have an exit plan.
Yes, great. This is a very clear exit plan. Thank you very much, Darko. That was a great conversation. Wish you all the best, and of course, to reach ARR, that will enable you to have a strong hand with Series A investors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this conversation, and bye to everyone watching this podcast.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All the best.